Hello. Is it working? Let's see. Um, looks good though. So, what are we talking about today? Um, do I need some light? I need some light. Is it a little dark in here? Uh, there we go. So, um, basically, there's a lot of commotion going on, and I don't really see things the way everybody else sees it. I just wanted to go over a few things that I've been looking at that maybe the average person, I guess, probably wouldn't take the time to even go through to retain this kind of information. And it's really basic. We have the internet today. So how do I want to start this is really, I want to actually hear what people are saying. That would be a good way to start this conversation right here. So we go with because the whole national anthem thing to me is like, why? Like, I hear a lot of people talk about it and they like fight over it, and I'm like, why though? Like, why is it really that serious? Like, why is it like? It seems like it's more serious than life itself. If you could comprehend those words, um, it just doesn't make sense to me why people are responding about it. And it's starting to be like a virus. It's like a virus now. Now, like everyone's partaking into this thing, and I'm just gonna do my thing. My thing is, I do this on my own. I just chill back, and I'll look at things, and then I'll be like, okay, I hear these people saying this. I hear those people saying that, and then those other people are saying this. And I'll go and I'll just check out everything. And, I like to just observe. I like to observe everything. And, but like what struck me that was interesting about this is this right here is with the whole national anthem thing. People are saying it's wrong to not stand for the national anthem. Donald Trump has gotten involved. I'm reading somewhere he's saying things. The president is getting involved into this. How national anthem became essential part of sports. Every man, woman, child should stand for the anthem. Ravens national anthem singer quits following NFL protests. Report all Patriots to stand for national anthem against Panthers. National anthem will be a storyline during Bears-Packers TV coverage. Fox News bold views shift on kneeling during national anthem. Lingerie Football League says, we stand for national anthem. Of course they do. They need all the attention they can get, right? Well, let's see. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with the national anthem, basically. Um, so I just went ahead and did a little investigation, a little studying, research, the stuff, people used to do in school. Some people actually continue to do that after they graduate. In case you didn't know that, people. um, so we got this right here. So the whole thing that the whole thing that caught my attention with the Star Spangled Banner dilemma is that I noticed that everyone was talking about standing for it and saying it and not standing for it and not saying it. It's either one or the other. I haven't really heard any other side of the story besides that. So I wanted to really get to know the Star Spangled Banner itself. I wanted to get to know it. I wanted to get to know the history of it. And so to get to know the history of it, I had to understand who wrote it. I had to understand who wrote the Star Spangled Banner. I had to learn about the person who wrote this. So his name was Francis Scott Key. His name was Francis Scott Key. And I guess I'll just start off with him. Francis Scott Key, born August 1st, August 1st, 1779. Boy, that dude's old. Francis Scott Key, born August 1st, 1779. And he died January 11th, 1843. He lived to be 63 years old, and he was born in Frederick County, which is now Carroll County in Maryland, United States. And he died in Baltimore, United States, in Maryland. So Francis Scott Key was an American lawyer, author, and amateur poet from Frederick, Maryland, and later Georgetown, D.C., near Washington, D.C., who wrote the lyrics for a poem entitled, at first, The Defense of Fort McHenry, which, when set to a Old English Gentleman's Society tune, eventually became the United States national anthem. Eventually became. Pay attention to the words. Well, at least I pay attention to the words I read. So it said eventually became the United States national anthem. So, okay, it wasn't always the national anthem to start with, and one day it became it because someone chose this thing that this man, Francis Scott Key, wrote. So let's see. The Star Spangled Banner. Let's go into see about this man, Francis Scott Key. Already, Francis Scott Key was born to Anne Phoebe Penn Dagworthy Charlton and Captain John Ross Key at the family plantation. Damn. Wow. Okay, look, that's the first thing that just caught my attention off the back. So, Mr. Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the national anthem, had parents, of course, a mother and a father, and he had a family plantation going on. It was then part of Frederick County, now Carroll County, Maryland. His father was a lawyer, judge, and officer in the Continental Army. His grandparents on his father's side, Philip Key and Susan Barleton Gardner, were both born in London and then immigrated to Maryland in 1726. Key graduated from St. John's College, Annapolis, Maryland in 1796 and read the law under the uncle Philip Barton Key, who was, along with his wife, loyal and to the British Crown during the War of Independence. He married Mary Taylor Lloyd on January 1st, 1802. So, the Star-Spangled Banner. So, during the War of 1812, Francis Scott Key, accompanied by the British prisoner exchange agent Colonel John Stuart Skinner, dined aboard the British ship HMS Tonnant. As the guest of 3 British officers, Vice Admiral Alexander Cochrane, Rear Admiral George Cockburn, and Major General Robert Ross, Skinner and Key were there to negotiate the release of prisoners, on whom was Dr. William Beans, a president of Upper Marlborough, Maryland, who had been arrested after jailing marauding British troops who were looting local farms. Skinner, Key, and Beans were not allowed to return to their own slop because they had become familiar with the strength of position of the British Unions and with the British intent to attack Baltimore. Thus, Key was unable to do anything but watch the bombarding of the American forces at Fort McHenry during the Battle of Baltimore on the night of September 13th and 14th of 1814. At dawn, Key was able to see a flag still waving back at Baltimore, and inspired, Key wrote a poem about his experience titled Defense of McHenry, which was soon published in Williams Pynchon's American and Commercial Daily Advisor on September 21st, 1814. He took it to Thomas Carr, a music publisher, who adapted it to the rhythms of composer John Stanford Smith to Anacreon in Heaven, a popular tune Key had already used as a setting for his 1805 song When the Warriors Return, celebrating U.S. heroes of the First Barbary War. Key used the Star-Spangled Flag imagery in the earlier song. It has become better known as the Star-Spangled Banner. Through somewhat difficult to sing, it became increasingly popular, competing with Hail Columbia 1796 as the de facto national anthem by the time of the Mexican-American War and American Civil War. More than a century after its publication, the song was adopted as the American national anthem, first by the executive order from President Woodrow Wilson in 1916, which had little effect beyond requiring military bands to play what became known as the service version, and then by a congressional resolution in 1931 signed by President Herbert Hoover. He had a legal career. He was a leading attorney in Frederick, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. for many years, with the extensive real estate as well as trial practice. Okay. He and his family settled in Georgetown in 1805 and 1806, near the new national capital. There, the young Key assisted his uncle, the prominent lawyer Philip Barton Key, such as in the sensational conspiracy that of Aaron Burr and the expulsion of Senator John Smith of Ohio. He made the first of his many arguments before the United States Supreme Court in 1807. In 1808, he assisted President Thomas Jefferson's Attorney General in the United States versus Peters. going on? Oh, here it goes. Scott purchased Francis Scott Key. Sorry. Yeah, Francis Scott Key. So look, Francis Scott Key purchased his first slave in 1800 or 1801 and owned 6 to 8 slaves in 1820, mostly in the 1830s. Key set free one of his slaves. Key set free one of his slaves whose name was Clem Johnson. Clem Johnson, the one slave that he freed off of his plantation, well, Clem Johnson decided, I don't know if he decided or not, or if he just offered it to him instead of just him going to go live whatever life he was going to live. I don't know how it went down, but those are the perspectives that I could come up with. But going on, the one slave that he let free, named Clem Johnson, continued to work for him for wages as his farm's foreman, supervising his other slaves. Now, I'm just saying, this is the guy that wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem. This is what he was about. This is what I'm reading he was about. This is the life he lived. This is the life he was writing about. Okay? Anyway, moving on. Let's see what we got here. Throughout his career, he represented several slaves seeking their freedom in court for free, as well as several masters seeking return of their runaway slaves. Damn! How does that work? That is... Okay, I'm going to help the slaves. Well, who are these slaves? Like, who are these people? Like, what's really going on here? I'm helping slaves, and I'm helping the masters. I'm helping slaves, and I'm helping the masters, because he's a master too, though. Like, yeah, he is a master. He got his own slaves. He got the plantation. He's a master too, so of course he's gonna... Okay, so yeah, moving on. Anti-abolitionist. Key used his position as U.S. Attorney to suppress abolitionists. In 1833, he secured a grand jury indictment against Benjamin Lundy, editor of the anti-slavery publication, The Genius of Universal Emancipation, and his printer William Greer, for libel after Lundy published an article that declared, "There is neither mercy nor justice for colored people in this District of Columbia." Lundy's article, Key said in the indictment, was intended to injure, oppress, aggrieve, and vilify the good name, fame, credit, and reputation of the magistrates and constables of Washington. Lundy left town rather than to face trial. Greer was acquitted. In August 1836, Key agreed to prosecute botanist and Dr. Reuben Crandall, brother of controversial Connecticut school teacher Prudence Crandall, who had recently moved to the national capital. Key secured an indictment for seditious libel after two marshals who operated as slave catchers in their off hours. Wow. Key agreed to prosecute botanist and Dr. Reuben Crandall, brother of controversial Connecticut school teacher Prudence Crandall, who had recently moved to the national capital, Washington, D.C. Key secure a indictment for seditious libel after two marshals who operated as slave catchers in their off hours found Crandall, who had a trunk full of anti-slavery publications in his Georgetown residence. 5 days after the snow riot, caused by rumors that a mentally ill slave had attempted to kill an elderly white woman, in April 1837, trial that attracted nationwide attention, Key charged that Crandall's action instigated slaves to rebel. Crandall's attorney acknowledged he opposed slavery, but denied any intent or actions to encourage rebellion. Key, in his final address to the jury, said, "Are you willing, gentlemen, to abandon your country, to permit it to be taken away from you, and accompanied by the abolitionist, according to whose taste it is to associate and amalgamate with the Negro or gentleman? On the other hand, are there laws in this community to defend you from the immediate abolitionist who would, upon openly you to the floodgates of such extensive wickedness and mischief?" The jury acquitted Crandall. Okay. So, I read something on the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. This is the man who wrote it I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what people are saying. I'm not talking about the people who are kneeling, who have a problem with the people that are not kneeling, or the people who are standing, who has a problem with the people who aren't standing. I'm not speaking from their perspective. I'm speaking from my perspective. This is what I'm paying attention to. They're paying attention to a flag, and I'm paying attention to the facts of this situation. And this is it. Like, when you get down to it, you're like, okay, yeah, oh, let's dig deeper. So, the Star-Spangled Banner, as most Americans know it, is a couple of lines. In fact, if you look up the song on Google, only the most famous lyrics pop up on page 1. "Oh, say you can see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars the peerless fight o'er the ramparts were watched, were so gallantly stream, and thy rockets' red glare, thy bombs burst in the air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does the Star-Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?" That's what it says in that first piece, I guess, is what we're looking at. I'm looking at that first piece of, that's it. That's what you hear most of the time, I guess. Francis Scott Key was a prisoner on a British ship during the War of 1812 and wrote his poem while watching the American troops battle back the invading British in Baltimore. That as is the case with 99% of history that is taught in public schools and regurgitated by the mainstream press, is less than half the story. He It says Key was a aristocrat and city prosecutor in Washington D.C. I explained this before. He was like most. He was like the most enlightened man at the time. Not against slavery. He just thought since blacks were mentally inferior, masters should treat them with more Christian kindness. He supported sending free blacks, not slaves, back to Africa and, with few exceptions, was about as pro-slavery, anti-black, anti-abolitionist as you could get at the time. That's who he was. On particular note was Key's opposition to the idea of the colonial marines. The colonial marines. This is where it gets interesting. Of particular note was Key's opposition to the idea of the colonial marines. Let me see if anybody's watching real quick. I see y'all watching. All right, that's what's up. Let me get back to reading. Watch. Of particular note was Key's opposition to the idea of the colonial marines. The Marines were a battalion of runaway slaves who joined with the British Royal Army in exchange for their freedom. The Marines were not only a terrifying example of what slaves would do if given the chance, but also a repudiation of the white superiority that men like Key were so invested in. All of these ideas and concepts came together around August 24th, 1815. At the Battle of Bladensburg, where Key was serving as lieutenant at the time, ran into a battalion of colonial marines. He ran into a battalion of runaway slaves who joined with the British Royal Army in exchange for their freedom. Okay? So, when he was serving as a lieutenant at the time, ran into a battalion of colonial marines. His troops were taken to the woodshed by the very black folks he disdained. And he fled back to his home in Georgetown to lick his wounds. The British troops, emboldened by their victory in Bladensburg, then marched into Washington, D.C., burning the Library of Congress, the Capitol building, and the White House. You can imagine that Key was very much in his feelings seeing black soldiers trampling on the city he so desperately loved. A few weeks later, September of 1815, far from being a captive, Key was on a British boat begging for the release of one of his friends, a doctor named William Beans. I think I spoke on this. This is another version. Key was on the boat waiting to see if the British would release his friend when he observed the bloody Battle of Fort McHenry in Baltimore on September 13, 1815. America lost the battle, but managed to inflict heavy casualties on the British in the process. This inspired Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner right then and there. But no one remembers that he wrote a full third stanza decrying the former slaves who were now working for the British Army. And it goes something like this. And where is that band? Why so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave, the heirling and slave, from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the star-spangled banner in triumph doeth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Okay? Okay. In other words, Key was saying that the blood of the former slaves and heirlings of the battlefield will be washed away, and it will wash away the pollution of the British invaders. With Key still bitter that some black soldiers got the best of him a few weeks earlier, the Colonial Marines, the Star-Spangled Banner is as much a patriotic song as it is a diss track to black people who had the audacity to fight for their freedom. Oh, that makes complete sense, right? Perhaps that's why it took almost 100 years for the song to become the national anthem. Very good point. More of the story. There is an excellent short documentary about the history of the Star-Spangled Banner by some students at Morgan State University. In the meantime, it might be a good idea to do your research, people, and open up a book or just hop on the web and study. You know what I mean? But yeah. So that's where I'm at with this whole dilemma, is what I read. That's where I'm at with it. I'm not with anybody on the football field. I could give a damn about the NFL. Who gives a damn about the NFL? Sheesh. Who gives a damn about the NFL, right? Because just speaking about the NFL, what was it called? CTE? CTE. 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 Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Encephalopathy. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a neurodegenerative disease found in people who have had multiple head injuries. It is most commonly found in those who have physically partake in contact sports on a regular basis. Its presence is domestic violence. Is also being investigated. Its presence in domestic violence is also being investigated. It can affect high school athletes after only a few years of participation, dude. Dang, it can affect high school athletes after only a few years of participation. It is a form of neuropathy. Damn. Symptoms of CTE. Symptoms of CTE, which occurs in 4 stages, generally appear 8 to 10 years after an athlete experiences repetitive mild traumatic brain injury. So you telling me that 8 to 10 years after I had this concussion, Depending on how bad and serious the brain injury and how often I was having brain injuries during that injury, just think about it, okay, people? Just think about it. I'm just saying, that's all I do is think. You could think too. So, like, dang, 8 to 10 years after that, now I'm going through a life or death situation because I chose to play football. Because I chose to play football. Because daddy wanted me to play football. I got CTE. Mama wanted me to play football. I got CTE. Moving on. I'm getting carried away. Anyway, symptoms of CTE, which occurs in 4 stages, generally appears 8 to 10 years after an athlete experiences repetitive, mild traumatic brain injury. First stage symptoms include attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as well as confusion, disorientation, dizziness, and headaches. Second stage symptoms include memory loss, social instability, impulsive disorder, and poor judgment. Third and fourth stages include progressive dementia, movement disorders, hypomia, speech impediment, sensory processing disorders, tremors, vertigo, deafness, depression, and suicidality. Yeah, a lot of NFL players did kill themselves, didn't they? That's some real shit. CTE is some real shit. It ain't no joke. Like, there's been some real NFL players who have killed themselves, who have been through some very violent situations. And, I remember looking at the news when I was younger, seeing all these NFL players going through situations, and the news would portray it like, yeah, they doing something wrong. They're a bad person. They're breaking the law. Domestic violence, public disturbance, whatever it was, killing family, then killing themselves. It looks horrible, but at the source of it, yeah, there was something wrong in here. There was something wrong with them. And no one helped them the way they really needed to be helped. So, CTE. Think about it. That's far from the Star Spangled Banner, but if there's anything I'm not going to stand up for is not for, a corporation that's encouraging high school students, minors, teenagers, they're encouraging kids to develop CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I mean, this is some really serious shit I'm reading. Like, besides as far as Francis Scott Key, go do your research on Francis Scott Key. That's what y'all need to do. Francis Scott Key, that dude. And then, besides that, yeah, dude, Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner. I read that. He was a U.S. District Attorney for Woodrow Wilson and the President, and he was a very, what they say, he was one of the wisest guys at the time in the United States. So he was in a very prominent position. He was born. His family, his mom and dad had a damn plantation, guys. His mom and dad had a freaking plantation. They had slaves. Like, it was a normal day of the week for them. Okay? It was a normal day of the week for them. And he grew up with that. He grew up with that privilege to have slaves as a kid. Like, he grew up as a kid having a slave. You got to think about that shit, people. I'm serious. Think about that shit. The man who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, his parents had a plantation, and he was born on that plantation, and he was raised up on that plantation, and he had his own plantation, and he had his own slaves. One day he wrote the Star Spangled Banner. You guys need to read, stop following the hype. If you're going to follow it, at least do some type of research or investigation. Just don't take somebody's word for it. Take your own word for it. So that's where I'm at on that. I got some new music I'm working on besides all that. Some new music. Working on that. Been trying to get some models. I'm looking for a male and a female. They don't have to have experience. They could use this as a learning experience. Just to go out, we'll be out in the world, in the city of Yakima, more than likely, taking pictures, you know what I'm saying? Different little locations, different poses, a lot of experience. I'm looking for a male and a female, straight up, male and a female, at least 18 years old. And we're going to have a lot of portrait sessions because I'm trying to do a lot of stuff. I'm always doing a lot of stuff. I always try to take care of things. So, when I hear the national anthem, here it comes. You know it's about to come, right? Y'all know it's about to come. After what I just read, shit. You know it's coming. I don't give a damn who got to say. I don't give a damn who gonna delete me off my friend list because of this BS. It's just a damn anthem when you look at it. But, hey, after I read that shit, I read about the dude who wrote the anthem. I read about his life. If you guys missed this, very, nice gathering I put together for everyone to take part in my discoveries. Maybe hopefully Facebook doesn't delete this video. Hopefully this one gets reposted. Unlike the other time I tried to do this. Hopefully this one gets posted up like it should, and everyone's able to actually press play and go through it. I've been up here for 44 minutes, just chilling with my people, and that's how I get down. Because I love everyone. I love everyone as a human being. I see everything on a human being kind of level. Like, yeah, there's a lot of different skin tones, but hey, I got a natural tan. I can't hate on nobody. You know what I'm saying? I'm naturally light skinned. It's the way I gotta live my life. It is what it is. You dig me? Yep. Here it comes. Like I said, after reading what I read, which y'all could go back and replay this if you missed it. After reading what I read to you, facts, history, recorded history. After reading that, reading this man, Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner. It wasn't called the Star Spangled Banner. He named it something, and they named it something, and then it became named the Star Spangled Banner. So he didn't even name it the Star Spangled Banner. I'm just saying, he didn't even name it that shit to begin with. Like, someone else named it that shit. But he wrote this shit. So at least let's give the dude who wrote this shit some kind of attention. Something. So after reading what I read and finding out he was a slave owner, parents were slave owners. They had plantations. He had slaves himself. He let one of his slaves free, and I think he offered him that one slave he let free that he had. He offered that. He was like, hey, look, I'll set you free, but look, don't tell nobody I'm setting you free, because I'm gonna give you a job after I set you free. I'm gonna give you a job after that. I'm gonna make sure you get paid, unlike all the other slaves. Anyway, the dude that wrote the Star Spangled Banner was a slave owner. His parents were slave owners. The man who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, what I found out was he was born on a plantation. His parents had slaves. He was a kid who had slaves. He grew up being comfortable having slaves. Besides that, if I heard the national anthem, Donovan, would I stand up and cross my heart and hope to die for it? No. I'm sorry. No. I haven't for a long time, actually, to tell you the truth. Way before Kaepernick. Way before that shit. I haven't. Because I knew this shit a long time ago. Unlike a lot of people. Unlike majority of people, I should say. I knew about this shit a long time ago. I just thought maybe, I make a video. You know what I mean? Something that'll maybe touch somebody's mind. Open them up a little bit. Stop being so closed-minded, people. Try to expand your perspectives. So yeah. I'm out this piece. You know what I'm saying? I'm out like a chicken wing. Oh yeah, new music coming soon. No music videos though. No. No music videos. Maybe one day, when I get back to LA, we could make it really, really happen. Like a whole block type thing, where I can have my cousins and all kinds of people that I have grown up with and feel really comfortable around, who don't think I'm weird or strange because we used to go to the same school and grew up together, and we all been kids together, and we done a lot of stuff together, and yeah, like I'm talking about, yeah, years upon years of history together, and they treat me like family, and I treat them like family, and yeah, maybe one day hopefully one day if I ever get back to LA, I'm gonna make that shit happen on the real, on the Rizzo, on the real. Yep, because that's the place where I do my thing the best. All right, people. You know what I'm saying? I hope you have a good night. Don't hate me. Love me. Because I love you. All right? Make sure you play this video back if you missed anything, though. All right? Deuces.